Hello and welcome to Module 1. In Module 1, we are going to take a look at the overview of the ETL process. So in this module, we'll look at what ETL means, and we'll look at what the tools we are going to use in this course to accomplish that. Besides, we're also gonna show some simple demonstrations of how the ETL process works. So this module should be a nice little introduction to not only the ETL process, but also just getting you used to work through modules. So let's get started. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. What it means of this course is that you extract data from one place, you make changes to the data as necessary, and then you load that data into the new home or its new location. To give an example of that, I'll pull out the SQL Server Management Studio and show the contents of two different databases. And note that those databases are the ones that we are going to working through the course. Okay, so the first line will make the connection. Run this code to connect to the SQL Server database engine and focus on PAPS database. PAPS is a Microsoft database, database that was made a long time ago and it's been used for a very long time. This query will select the data from the title table. Now the demonstration is an example of taking the data from PAPS and transforming it into data that will be loaded into the data warehouse PAPS cells. So this is a data warehouse that we'll be making a little later on, and we're just reusing for example. The select statement here shows an example of what the data is going to look like when it goes to the data warehouse. I shall run all of them and see what will happen. So the first table is the result for the first selection, and the second table is the data for second selection, or how the data is look like when it's going to the data warehouse. You can see there are some differences. In the first thing, there are a number of columns that I may not have found useful, such as I didn't fill the advanced royalty or the year date sales or the notes are useful. You may find that somewhat odd when we would leave something out, but in general, not everything is really ready for your reports or even accurate. For example, if you look more closely at the years to date sales, you may find that it has been static for a very long time and doesn't actually add up to the information in the sales table. Something is wrong with that. The royalty may be interesting about what the percentage of the royalty for a particular title, but may not be applicable to the type of reports that you want to use. And certainly the notes may be useful at some point in time, but perhaps not at this point in time. Just because it exists in the transaction processing table or some other resources does not mean you have to take it with you. And remember, we are not talking about deleting the original data. We're just talking about going through and using it, using some of the data to make a report-worthy structure a repository of data for our reports. Now, the couple of things to note. First of all, the column names has been transformed. Instead of have title underscore ID, that we have title ID. Instead of just being title, I have title name. And instead of type, I have title type. Publisher key instead of pub ID. And the published date key, that's the same thing. And instead of the price, I have title price. The publisher and we have made some changes, made things look a little bit more modern and more consistent. Also a little clearer about what exactly you are looking at. In addition to that, we will use a technique known as surrogate keys. Surrogate keys are a typical addition to any data warehouse table. So we see the use of that here and also the use of it on publisher key and the published data key. In which case, for a reference to separate key instead of the original key, those are sometimes called the nature keys. The database uses a combination of the type and some numerical value. The problem with that was proven when people started making changes of the type later on and noticing that their numbering system doesn't change correspondingly, so it's not very flexible. Speaking of the type, another transformation we were made is we go through it and we'll change the business to uppercase. The mode cake to the modern cooking. So it's much easier to understand what it means. This is the part of the transformation process, getting your data to go from this to this. And you transform it, then load it into your data warehouse. Nice and clean and transformed. So yes, that is the process, and that's what extracting, transforming, and loading is all about. Next, we are going to go ahead and take another look at how specific examples of how it works. Okay, see you there.